In this course, we will review the following: Introduction to PSLS, Culture of Safety, Important PSLS Terms, How to access the PSLS Landing Page, How to complete a report, Scenarios of when to use what form, and additional information and contacts. BCPSLS has fostered improvements in patient safety and quality of care in all healthcare settings since its launch in 2008. Today, we are focused on streamlining data collection and output, enhancing learning across our healthcare system, and improving the quality of our modules and tools. Approximately 350 safety event reports are submitted to BCPSLS each day from across the province. The data allows us to identify safety concerns and target quality and safety improvements where they are needed most. To date, approximately 800,000 event reports are in the BCPSLS database. Data summaries provide a rich basis for learning and improvement to over 10,000 healthcare leaders across BC. The ultimate goal of PSLS is to make healthcare safer for all British Columbians. Awareness, communication, and effective teamwork help to identify and remove hazards. Using safety events as learning opportunities helps make healthcare safer. By analyzing the data to mitigate safety risk, we are able to create change and quality improvement. A culture of safety can be defined as an integrated pattern of individual and organizational behavior based upon shared beliefs and values that continuously seeks to minimize patient harm that may result from the processes of care delivery. Your role is to identify, report, and address safety events that occur during your workday. Identifying and reporting safety events provides us with information necessary for analysis, trending, and quality improvement. You can help create a culture of safety by promoting a non-blaming and just culture, encouraging hazard and safety event reporting, and providing recommendations for change. Please take a moment to become familiar with these important terms. An example of a patient safety event is an admitted patient on the medicine floor receives the wrong type of blood for a transfusion and has an allergic reaction. An example of a safety hazard is the emergency room floor was recently washed, but there are no visible signs to alert patients or staff of the wet floor. Visitor safety event. An example of this: a wife is visiting her husband in the ICU, and upon arrival to his bedside, she faints. An example of a near miss or a good catch: a nurse went to administer medication, checked the 7 rights, and found that the wrong dose of medication was delivered. Finally, a reportable death. Community care nurse goes to the client's home for a regular appointment and knows that the client is on palliative orders, however is found deceased. The death was anticipated and not due to a patient safety event. Each health authority has access to PSLS through their internal website, or you can follow the above link and click on the icon for your health authority. For more information on which form to use, you can hover your mouse over the icon. Mandatory fields are marked with red asterisks. Tell the story in your own words. Try to focus on the facts of the situation. Try to be patient-focused and include as much context as you can. For example, what was happening in your area at the time of the event? How did you discover the problem? What was the outcome for the patient? Please try to not include names, only roles, and please refrain from the use of blaming language. Please complete questions in the order, as the choice in the previous field filters the choices available in the following fields. You should have the option to provide your contact details at the end of the report, and if you choose to do so, You will receive an email notification to confirm the event has been submitted once complete. This is especially useful for reported events that you would like to receive feedback on.
The night nurse's handover to the writer was that the patient was going for an X-ray. However, when the porter arrived, they believed the patient was going to be taken for a CT scan. When the writer reviewed the patient's chart, the patient was in fact booked for a CT scan and required contrast. Because the patient did not have contrast, the CT scan had to be cancelled.
Once you have selected the most appropriate form to report the safety event, you will be asked to complete the date and times, location details, and brief description of the event. Mandatory fields are marked with red asterisks. You can obtain more information about any of the fields by clicking on the question mark sign. Tell the story in your own words. Try to focus on the facts of the situation. Try to be patient-focused and include as much context as you can. For example, what was happening in your area at the time of the event? How did you discover the problem? What was the problem for the patient? Please try to not include any names, only roles, and please refrain from the use of blaming language. Please complete questions and the category descriptions in the order they appear, kind of like documenting your head-to-toe assessment, as the choice in the previous field chooses the selection in the next field. Frontline see everything that may not be obvious to others, so your ideas for improvement are vital for providing safe and quality patient care. Patient information is important for the handler for additional follow-up. You have the option to provide your contact details at the end of the report, and if you choose to do so, you will receive an email notification to confirm the event has been submitted once complete. This is especially useful for reported events that you would like to receive feedback on. Once you've completed the form, assign the most appropriate handler and then hit submit.
The primary nurse was about to give her patient 1 dose of Suboxone. This drug and particular prescription is the combination of 2 milligrams of bupropion and 0.5 milligrams of naloxone. Because this was the first time this nurse had administered Suboxone, she requested an independent double check from her colleague. The secondary nurse noticed that the drug dose was incorrect when compared to the prescription. When the primary nurse backtracked her steps, it was noted that when the primary nurse read the Suboxone order, they saw 2 milligrams, which became a focus for her. She then went to withdraw Suboxone from the Omnicell, saw 2 milligrams, despite it being in the other Suboxone selection, and confirmed that this was the right drug she was after. This is a great example of confirmation bias and is a type of bias that we all fall for. Please have a look at the Omnicell. You can see where we have highlighted how they confirm the drug. You will note when the primary nurse went to withdraw Suboxone from the Omnicell, both drug combinations are located in the same bin with fairly similar packaging. It was luck that the primary nurse decided to go with the feeling of uncertainty in dispensing this drug and requesting an independent double check. Because they chose not to ignore any assumptions, this good catch prevented any form of harm occurring to the patient. To report a good catch, near-miss medication event, select the medication form. Work your way down the form, providing the dates and times and locations of the good catch. If the event originated in another location, for example, if pharmacy sent the wrong dose, you can add a second location to the report by selecting Yes to did the event originate elsewhere. For the event description, tell your story in your own words. Try to focus on the facts of the situation, try to be patient-focused, and include as much context as you can. For example, what was happening at the time of the event? How did you discover the event? And what actions were taken? Please try not to include any names, only roles, and please refrain from the use of blaming language. In order to report this event as a good catch, select Yes to did the event almost happened. Instead of assigning a degree of harm, you will now be asked how the event was caught and prevented. Reporting good catches gives us important information on how events are prevented, whether it was a safeguard in place, communication between the team, or the patient prevented the error. Continue down the form, providing as much detail as you can. Each drop-down menu and ticky box gives us information that can be used to inform quality improvement. There is a long list of medications. Instead of scrolling through, you can begin typing the product name and the list will populate. Frontline staff see everything that may not be obvious to others, so your ideas for improvement are vital for providing safe and quality patient care. Be sure to include the patient's information for the handler, as it may be necessary for additional follow-up. There is space to include who is notified of the event. For example, the clinical nurse leader or the pharmacy department. It's important to let your handler know the steps that were taken so that they do not duplicate the follow-up. You will have the option to provide your contact details at the end of the report, and if you choose to do so, you will receive an email notification to confirm the event has been submitted. This is especially useful for reported events where you would like to receive feedback. Depending on your health authority, you may need to assign the appropriate handler. Once you've completed the event, hit Submit. So what changes happened from this good catch? First, the pre-printed orders for Suboxone have been redeveloped by the addictions team that simplifies the order. Second, the milligram sign has been added to bupropion 2 mg and 8 mg dosing on the Omnicell interface, which matches the pre-printed order. Third, a forcing function alert has been added to the Omnicell interface. Lastly, Suboxone education packages have been created with a widespread education blitz rolled out, which also included emergency department pharmacists and educators circulating the emergency department talking about Suboxone.
One of the unit RNs walked by a patient room when he heard a cry for help and a thud. Upon arrival to the room, he found Mrs. Jane lying on the floor, wedged in between her bed and the side table, with an obvious abrasion to both her knees. After a comprehensive nursing and medical assessment, including providing a simple dressing to both knees and pain management, you go to complete a PSLS report. However, you then become unsure on how to document the degree of harm. There was potential for severe harm, but in this instance, was there actual severe harm? Determining and standardizing the degree of harm for injuries associated with an event can be tricky. Determine the degree of harm to the best of your knowledge at the time of the completion of the PSLS. Ask yourself, What is the extent to which Mrs. Jane's functional ability is expected to be impaired as a result of her fall? Her actual degree of harm will then be classified as a 2, minor harm. Reason being, the fall caused mild, temporary harm that required application of a dressing, and there was no impact or trauma witnessed or evident above the neck. The description of harm is where you would state the exact facts presented from your head-to-toe assessment. Knees red and swollen, 2 skin tears to each kneecap noted. Potential for severe harm includes loss of or severe impairment or damage to limb, function, vital organ, or life. Still stuck? Check out the examples provided by clicking on the question mark. We want to know what interventions were put in place and being used to prevent falls or prevent injuries. Why? We can then use this information to further understand what measures were put into place prior to the patient falling, if they either mitigated harm or if something else needs to be put into place to continue providing safe care for the patient. Frontlines see everything that may not be obvious to others, so your ideas for improvement are vital for providing safe and quality patient care. Patient information is important for the handler for additional follow-up. You should have the option to provide your contact details at the end of the report, and if you choose to do so, you will receive an email notification to confirm the event has been submitted once complete. This is especially useful for reported events that you would like to receive feedback on. Once you've completed the form, assign the most appropriate handler and then hit submit.
An RN is walking past the bathroom on the 3rd floor when she notices there is water. The water appears to be leaking from the sink. A safety hazard is a hazardous situation for patient, staff, or others that could cause risk to safety, but where no specific patient was involved. Select the Safety Hazard Report form. Fill in the location of where the hazard was identified. Select the date and time the hazard was identified. In the description of the hazard, include any relevant details, including the steps you took to contain the hazard. Select who the hazard could affect, whether that's patients, staff, or visitors. Next, document who you notified of the hazard. This could be facilities maintenance, security, or the on-call manager. This documentation will help the handler conduct the appropriate follow-up. Continue down the form, documenting any relevant information, including equipment and medication factors. If you have ideas for prevention of future hazards, be sure to include them. Select your program and role, and then fill in your contact details. This ensures the handler can connect with you if further information is required. Depending on your health authority, you may need to assign the appropriate handler. You can scroll or start typing the handler's name or role, and the list will populate. If you miss a mandatory question, the field will be highlighted in red text. You will need to confirm an answer before the form will submit.